I think ultimately most human beings know what's right and what's wrong. And if you always err on this is something I would appreciate and I would do and I think it's right, you're going to have less problems or issues with what you're doing. You're typically going to be on the right side.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss. On the show with me today, we got George Pino, all the way from LA. I didn't mean to rhyme, but it just happened to. George, how you doing today? And right now, as we're speaking, we had some crazy wildfires.
Yeah, I'm doing well. There are definitely some issues that LA is dealing with, the wildfires. But overall, I'm blessed that my family wasn't as affected by it as much, or inconvenienced more so than affected. There's a whole lot of other people out there that have a lot more trials and tribulations than I do from this. So, my heart goes out to them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you're obviously right there, in the middle of it, regardless of being personally affected. Pretty crazy stuff
I,
going on
I
in
was
the
a
world right
block
now.
away from the mandatory evacuation zone. A lot of my neighbors actually just left because they're like, well, we're a block away. We might as well just go.
Yeah. Well, George, grateful to have you on the show. As I mentioned, we had your partner, Joe Killinger, not too long ago, a
Mhm.
few weeks, month ago or so on the show, and it was really great conversation. He spoke about, how you guys came together in a previous career and how you came together to form Commercial Brokers International and how it's actually become international, which is pretty cool. You named something that you gotta show it up. But, I'd love for you to give a little background. I know you've been in the real estate industry for quite a long time and probably have a lot more experience than most of us out there. And I'd love for you to give a little
Well,
little background.
I was told that I can no longer tell you how many years I've been in the industry. I can only say 30 plus. But I went right into the industry right out of college. And, I graduated college in 1987. So I jumped right in. So I've been doing this for quite some time. I loved it. Originally I started off, it was a salaried position at a company that was doing a lot of real estate auctions, and I had an amazing education through them. Parted ways 6 years later. I ended up starting a company. That's where I met Joe, and we became business partners from there. So we started that, and we started the evolution of starting companies. Being youthful, we were probably more surprised than anything that someone trusted us to start these companies for them and or divisions. And we weren't really smart enough to ask for equity into the companies, and we kept getting sold. So back in 2005, we decided to start our own company and kind of take a little bit more control of our career path, so to speak.
And together you guys formed Commercial Brokers International, as I mentioned, which is
Yep.
a pretty awesome platform. Joe spoke about it a little bit on the show, but for our listeners who may not have tuned into that episode yet for some reason, if you haven't, go back and check it out. But give us a little background. What's that about?
Absolutely. So, Commercial Brokers International, we started that company in 2005, or this company in 2005.
Hmm.
And, when we originally started the company, we wanted to address a lot of the concerns that we saw within the commercial real estate industry that we think back then things were done very differently. And we didn't think that necessarily most companies or even agents had the client's best interests in mind.
Hmm.
So, as a tongue in cheek play, Commercial Brokers International, CBI, client's best interest. So, that was always the foremost and part of the foundation of the company is how we can create our client's best interest while also maintaining high levels of service, deal flow, volume, and things like that, but also addressing going even further, saying, the agents that work with us that are underneath our brokerage umbrella, they're our clients as well. And a lot of companies don't look at it that way. They look at the agents as profit centers. But, realistically speaking, these are our clients. So we wanted to build things. And I've always said, I've been out of that mentality of, I will never ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So at the same time, I would never ask somebody to join a company, my company, if I wouldn't be willing to join it myself if I was in their shoes. So we structured a lot of stuff and changed a lot of things how we did it. And it's kind of interesting because, back then, no one really talked about the whole balance of live and work and, and the company culture and things like that. It was all about, make money, make money, make money. And we looked at it as, well, one of my old jokes I used to say is, I have a teenage daughter at home. I don't need any drama in the office. And she's since grown and she's off on her own, having a great career path. But it reminds me that in the office, we treat it almost, and I know it sounds in this day and age kind of, well, it's like family. If you talk to people, we still maintain friendships with people. Joe and I actually, and one of our agents, we flew out to India for a wedding for one of our ex-employees, and she hasn't worked with us for a year and a half. And we decided, she invited us, and we said, yeah, absolutely, we'll go and be there, support with the family. But that's the type of environment that we wanted to create. And we've been, if anything, that's probably the most proud thing of the company itself that I can say that we have.
That's pretty incredible. Wow, to fly halfway across the world for a wedding of a former employee,
Yes.
that's pretty awesome. That means that does show a lot in terms of the relationships that you keep with. Sometimes people leave companies and there's some bitter taste, there's some for whatever reason, people go their separate ways, but to
Mhm.
maintain that and maintain that type of communication and connection and relationship and really closeness that it takes to to attend a wedding
Yeah.
halfway across the world is that's pretty incredible. I don't know if I do that, to be honest.
Yeah, she's a wonderful person. She was amazing, and when she was with us, she was younger, and we were, also were giving her a little bit of life advice as well. And she
Right.
became just like, so it was the right thing to do, and that's ultimately a lot of what we go by is, there's businesses take a look at things and they look at it. Well, there's the monetary thing. It may not necessarily be the right thing, and I think ultimately most human beings know what's right and what's wrong, and if you always err on, "This is something I would appreciate and I would do, and I think it's right," you're gonna have less problems or issues with what you're doing. You're typically gonna be on the right side.
Yeah, 100%. It's pretty special, to be
Yeah.
honest, to be part of a group like that. How big is the company at this point in terms of
Well, we have
people? I know you
within the
have
Los
several
Angeles
companies.
office, yeah, we have 15 agents within the Los Angeles office and then some support staff as well. But then also, with the company itself on our expansion plans, we have 27 affiliated offices around the country and also out internationally in France, London, Bangladesh, South Africa. And so we've been able to expand that and be able to service clients. And a lot of what we've done is designed in a way to strategically bring in and help provide additional services for our clients. One of the things that we're really good about initially was we kept bringing in a lot of companies, international companies that were expanding into the Southern California marketplace. Unfortunately, 10 years ago, or even as short as 6 years ago, we weren't able to service them outside of the Southern California marketplace. So, especially when it was a
Yeah.
lot of leasing for companies opening up locations and stores, it's very difficult to do that. So we created the affiliate network. We started growing that, and it was mainly to be able to, we looked at different networking and affiliate companies and how they work, and none of it made sense to us. It was all about just generating fees for them.
Mhm.
So we believe in that whole, KISS method. Keep it simple.
Yep.
So we just reached out and Joe reached out and we started making affiliate partnerships, working with other companies that had a like mindset, that had the same type of clientele base and that we could work in. And we targeted specifically major metros that we knew our clients wanted to go to so that we could offer that service for them. So now we're actually able to, and we're signing up deals with large international companies on national expansion plans. And we're doing deals, through our affiliate network and everything else in Miami and New York and Texas, and Los Angeles, almost all the major metros right now. And it's really helped our agents grow their business to be able to offer that. And at the same time, it's a win-win because there's a lot of back and forth trading of deals going on as well.
For sure. Yeah, I mean that is the name of the game, I think we spoke about this earlier, but real estate, commercial real estate specifically, is really it's a people business, more than anything else. And so the greater network that you can build, the greater of those close relationships, the greater success you'll have in anything you do, and especially, transacting. It's no longer just a property, a transaction. It's really getting across the finish line together and doing it, like you said, client's best interest. It's everyone's best interest, really, when it comes down to it.
Absolutely. It's everyone's best interest in that mindset. And we like to kind of look at things a little differently in that Even a lot of our investments, they've been socially responsible real estate investment companies before that term was even coined.
Yeah.
But the idea was we had a mentor that taught us a lot. I mean, that was one of the probably the best thing and luckiest things for us is we had a lot of really good experienced people that showed us the ropes and trusted us to execute. But we learned quite a bit. And our last mentor, one of the things he said was, we have to look at in Los Angeles, there's a big homeless problem as well as the child care and child and education issues. And he said, well, ultimately, these are the people that are going to either ruin the city or run the city. And so, as much effort as we can put into supporting that and helping them, all it's going to do is make everything better, including the real estate, which is what we are. The trickle up theory versus the trickle down theory.
Right.
And, so a lot of what we gear is trying to give back to the community as well, trying to do things to look out, give back to the community, just talk about it. I mean, for instance, and this is, I'm just going to give a shout out because I thought this was pretty amazing this week during the fires you had mentioned. One of my agents called a company, about cold calling about the leasing and stuff. And they said, I'm really just here to be a resource for you. And they said, well, we don't need anything right now except food. And he goes, food? You're a gymnastics company. What do you mean? He goes, well, we're actually hosting daycare for all the displaced kids that
Well,
have no school to go to, that are, their homes were burnt down or they had to move out. So, we need 40 lunches a day. And he goes, oh, he actually ended up calling around some clients. He goes, I'm just being a resource. And out of his own time, he took the time to call around and arrange lunches. So he's picking up lunches for them and delivering them there.
that's awesome.
That's the type of people, that's the type of agents, that's the type of investments that we always look for in the sense of we're not just looking for making the quick dollar, making the quick deal happen, but how can we help improve the community? Because ultimately it'll come back twofold, threefold, fourfold.
Hundredfold many times. Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Yeah, and you guys work in pretty much every asset class. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in your career, you've done pretty much everything, right?
In my career, I've been lucky enough to do just about everything.
Yeah.
And when I say just about everything, I have some stories for you that I'm not I mean, I think the most interesting listing I ever had was one of the only LGBT or gay resorts in West Hollywood. Doing tours there was very interesting because it was also clothing optional.
Oy vey.
Yes, but we've done all asset classes. I have different agents that specialize in different asset classes. That's the idea behind it is that, number one, we wanted to, we saw the model of a lot of real estate companies where they tell you to specialize in one thing and that's all you can do.
Right.
Well, the problem with that is real estate's cyclical. And unless you plan for it, you may be doing very well one year, but not that well. Or, for instance, during the pandemic and even now, if you're in office leasing in LA, it's office leasing is picked up elsewhere around the country, but not really in Los Angeles. And if you're doing office leasing, I can't tell you how many agents are no longer in the business.
Hmm.
That's all they did. So we wanted to have the resource where at least an agent, if they specialize in office leasing, if something happened, such as the pandemic, and right now the belle of the ball is retail and it's on fire, but they could at least talk to the retail agents, work with them, and be able to have some source of income coming in during those lean times. So the idea was we wanted to create that opportunity for the agents, but also for the clients as well. I mean, if I'm a retail shop and that's all I do is retail, and I have a client that's looking for an investment and I send them to one of my competitors, well, that competitor, as much as they appreciate the referral, is probably going to try and talk them into the retail business
Yeah,
aside of
of
their
course.
business as well.
Unfortunately, that's the
So
case. Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, it happens, so that's kind of how we designed it, and that's how we wanted, and just through experience and time, age, I've been able to do quite a bit. My specialty tends to be more on the retail investment sales, especially single tenant net lease
Hmm.
around the country. I've been fortunate enough to sell in, I think last count was about 37 states, and working with different investors for families, even going back decades.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an incredible asset class. I'd love for you to talk about because you do mention, retail being the belle of the ball right now. I mean, it's funny because as long as I can remember, the last like 5, 8 years at least, like retail, especially since the pandemic, is people are talking about, oh, retail is going away and the apocalypse and all that kind of garbage, which most people recognize at the time was just that. Yeah, how do you see retail, especially in LA right now, picking up? Are there certain specific types of classes within retail that are being more successful than others?
Absolutely. And I think it depends on it's very also geographic specific. So, in the Los Angeles submarket right now, restaurants are having a very difficult time. A lot of that is food costs, but a lot of that is also employment costs. And they're having a very difficult time competing against everything across the board. I mean, minimum wage for fast food workers now for large chains starts at $20 an hour. It has an effect because ultimately the company has to stay in business is going to have to raise their prices to compete, for on the margins, but then people don't buy as much and then they start pushing back. And so it's a very interesting what's happening overall, but at the same time, retail itself, and especially the mom and pop shops, and gone are the days, I think, of the P&E companies grow at all costs. We're seeing that pushback already. But you see a lot of the American dream. I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to create this. I'm going to do this. And you see that opening and you see them expanding as well. We're also seeing experiential retail, whether it's like gyms or play places, things like that. They're doing very well as well. So, a lot of our clients were representing a couple of international company coming in that's opening up a chain of strength training and Brazilian butt workout places. But it's interesting times. I mean, people were talking about the death of retail when it came to Amazon
Right.
and everything else from the pandemic on. But, ultimately humans are humans and there's human nature, just like they said that, work from home is the way it's going to be for offices, and it's not. They
Right.
realize now that the synergies of having people in the office outweighs the cost of having that office. So we're seeing a lot more going back to the office to work. So we're actually starting to see office start picking up a little bit now, but it's not nearly as much as we'd like to see. When it comes to retail, though, human nature, people want to touch things. They want to see things. They want to be able to go out and enjoy and, and look at stuff. Now, certain items, sure. If you're looking at, I need some hairpins or some safety clips or whatever, yeah, you're going to go to Amazon and order that probably very quickly and have it delivered the next day or two. But ultimately, especially when you're looking at higher end retail, they want to feel, see, touch, make sure before they purchase. And there's also a little bit of, when it comes to online shopping, a little bit of wariness when it comes to, especially on the luxury items. It's like people are, well, is it real? Is it going to
Yeah.
be real? It's if you want a Louis Vuitton bag, I in India and in Thailand, I walking up and down the streets, I could buy a whole bunch of them for you for about $100. Were they real? Probably not.
Right. 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 Yeah. For sure.
You have to go to the actual Louis Vuitton store. So you're seeing that, and you're seeing actually a lot of people in those companies as well, especially the luxury brands, really investing in real estate.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I mean, it really does go to show you that it's even within retail, which is one sector of the commercial market. There's so many aspects of it, and there's so many things that you can focus on, and then it obviously gets even more specific when you're getting, like you said, to local markets. You're
Mhm. Absolutely. So, I know, like for instance, what I do, the single tenant net lease, QSRs, quick service restaurants, fast food restaurants, things like that, which is a big component of single tenant net lease properties. They're growing like crazy around the US for certain submarkets, but at the same time, in Los Angeles in our submarket here, there is, and rents have come down quite a bit across the nation, but in Los Angeles, they're growing like crazy because there's been a moratorium on new fast food drive-through restaurants for quite some time. So when a
wow,
new chain comes in and they want to be at a specific location, or lease is coming up and there's a location that has a fast food drive-through, they're paying ridiculous dollar amounts to come in there. And, I re-tenanted a 400 square foot hot dog place that had a drive-through in Santa Monica with a coffee concept, but we're close to $200,000 a year plus triple nets.
wow,
Add in the triple nets, you're probably at 240, 250 a year. So It's just a crazy submarket for that, and it varies market to market. So that's really why we need boots on the ground. That's one of the reasons we created the affiliate network, so we could actually have that type of boots on the ground in each specific submarket to be able to advise our clients on their growth.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, everywhere, right? Because you may
Yeah,
have a client that they're, based in Los Angeles, but they like to invest in, St. Louis or, Kansas City or wherever.
absolutely, absolutely,
Makes a huge difference if you can provide that service to them.
yes, yep, absolutely,
Yeah, amazing. And on the personal side, have you invested as well in terms of, your own
yes.
investments in retail or in other asset classes within real estate? I'd love to hear kind of
Uh,
your experience on that.
I started investing. I wish I had started earlier.
Right. Everyone does.
And I also wish that I had the money to hold versus sell. But Joe and I actually started investing. I think I bought my first investment property when I was 28, 28, 29, around that age. And the first property was actually, of all things, a condominium that we bought to flip, that we bought sight unseen at a real estate auction. But we knew the area fairly well. We knew the price. We knew that we were buying it for about 40 cents on the dollar, if not 30 cents on the dollar. We knew as a condominium, we had all the due diligence materials there. We were able to go through all the minutes and CCNRs. We knew that there were no special assessments coming up. We had the budgets for the HOA, so we knew they had reserves that were decent. So we knew worst case scenario, I'd have to remodel and put in maybe $10,000, $15,000 into new carpet, new flooring, maybe some appliances, countertops, and toilets and vanities and whatever else. So we knew our risk was very mitigated. We had mitigated the risk that way.
Right.
So we ended up buying it. It's still very scary when you're 28, 29, you're buying something you hadn't even seen yet. And the only reason we did was, and I don't advise people to do this, we were at the real estate auction and we kept getting outbid on all the properties that we wanted. So we're like, I'm buying something. We want to buy something thick. And
Just just jumped right in.
so we looked
That's
and
great.
found one, and we actually did really well with that. I mean, we literally were able to go in. We acquired it for 40,000. We put in about 15 in the rehab, and when we turned around and flipped it for 130,000 within 2 months.
That's pretty cool.
So did a really nice job with it. Good returns on it. But that allowed us to start buying more properties. And we started buying properties in bulk that we're doing to create income. We would start purchasing properties and then flip them and then sell them and then use the money to buy more properties, just keep growing it that way. We bought our first to hold property. It was a 10-unit apartment building in Los Angeles. At the time, we felt that we were overpaying, and that was probably around 1995 or so. So I was like 30 years old, just turned 30.
Mhm.
And that property, we thought we were overpaying for it. It turned out to be we did really well with that property, but we ended up buying another 6-unit apartment building, and then Joe had come up with an idea of how to create. We had an idea of creating a socially responsible real estate investment company, or Joe had the idea. Wanted to see how it would work if we could actually put it in place in our apartment buildings. And
Oh,
I,
interesting.
running the numbers, realized that we could only do it with a certain size. So we started selling some of those properties and concentrating on properties that were at least 30 units or more in the Los Angeles submarket. So we started buying
Nice.
apartment buildings for that and doing that. And once we then expanded out to Texas, buying properties in Texas, all multifamily. And once that ran its course, we decided to sell off the multifamily properties and we started buying retail, specifically a lot of single tenant net lease stuff.
Very cool.
And I have to tell you, as much as I enjoyed the investments with the multifamily, when we sold the last one, I think I breathed a sigh of relief.
So, I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like would you have gone back, now that you know what you know now, having, been this 30 plus years and doing all types of asset classes, doing the multifamily run and now focusing on single tenant net in terms of an investment side, knowing what you know now, would you go back and still do the multifamily or would you focus more on, I guess, the single
I
tenant
think I
or
would have
other
focused
types?
more on the retail investment side, to be frank with you. And a lot of that has to do with the local municipalities and the issues that arise with that in Los Angeles, and not just Los Angeles, actually. It's really pretty much around the country, especially depending on how liberal your city is. But it's one of the few asset classes where the government can come in and regulate what you charge and what you do. And, even during COVID, they were telling the residents that they didn't have to pay rent.
It's crazy.
And a
Wow.
lot of residents took advantage of that, even if they could pay rent.
Yep.
And what the problem was, the bills didn't stop for the landlords.
Yep.
And then on top of that, they said you couldn't raise the rents any further. Well, the problem is the expenses are going up. Water is going up like crazy. Utility costs are going up like crazy. And yet you can't pass that along with rental increases, or they cap the rental increases. So we felt there was too many regulations when it came to the multifamily marketplace for investment, for long-term investment and sustainability, especially with cash flow.
Yeah,
So we felt it was better to go off into a little bit more of the retail market where a lot of that's put on the tenant side and we can control a lot more overall. So,
for sure. And especially when you're dealing with a single tenant, there is, just like it sounds, a single tenant, and you're not dealing with multiple tenants and people who have to deal with employment and all kind of stuff to
yeah,
pay. You're dealing with, in many types, corporations who are, paying for that. You got a Taco Bell or Walgreens.
yeah,
I don't know who about Walgreens anymore, but any type of business that they're, many cases, and you can tell me more about this, their corporate guarantees on the leases also. So you can have something,
absolutely.
they're gonna pay it regardless of, if they're making money or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have a property right now that we purchased knowing that the tenant was going to go dark, meaning that they were going to vacate the building. But it is a large national bank that is strong, and we had over 9 years remaining on the lease. So we were able to pick up the property at quite a good price because we realized that they're going dark. And then at that time, we're taking our time to retenant the property. So, in the meantime, I'm still getting my 20 whatever thousand a month in rent from them,
Yep,
paying on time. Like wire comes in every single month. They would love to be out of the lease. And ultimately, when I find the right tenant, I'll approach them for a buyout. And, I'll probably be able to buy out, they'll, offer them 70 cents on the dollar to buy out the lease. And they'll probably jump on it. So we have knowing that that's how we structure our investment. Here's what we're looking for. Here's what I'm looking for as a return. Here's who I can do as a replacement. But it goes back down to the basic rule of real estate: location,
yep,
location, location. And this is a very strong location within the inner loop of Dallas, very high density and a high growth area as well.
that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible, and I'm sure you have hundreds of stories just like that with different clients, with different investments, and there's so much experience. I'd love if you, before we jump into the final four, if you can reach back into your memories, and if you have any like crazy stories or fun stories or I don't know, heartwarming story, whatever it is. Just I love for you. We love stories on the show, so if you can bring out a story from the recesses that you want to share with us, it'd be great.
Well, I have to tell you, during our when we did real estate auctions, and we had
Right.
created a company that became the number 2 real estate auction company on the West Coast, arguably within the nation. Joe and I did that within 2 years, and that in itself, dealing with some of the REO properties and real estate owned, bank foreclosed properties, there were lots of interesting stories. But, without getting too dark, I think the most interesting one was walking into a property and looking up, and there's a big hole in the ceiling. And it just so happens to be just like a cartoon man shaped hole. And apparently, the person was a drug dealer and he was trying to hide from the police, ran up into his attic, and then fell through when the police were there. He got arrested, the home got foreclosed. But we've seen everything from the darker sides of, everything from, unfortunately, I've had walked in on a large industrial warehouse that we were selling. Someone tried to steal the copper, not realizing the power was on, and they are haunting that building still. But the best stories though for me are the ones where we've helped our clients to solve a problem. And I just had one about a year or so ago. One of my agent referrals on the residential side approached me and said, I have a client who has a house that's north of San Vicente in Santa Monica, one of the best neighborhoods of Santa Monica, and she's renting it out for about $9,000 a month. And I was like, well, yeah, it's not that much for that area. Why? It was an older property, and it's just a smaller kind of property, but on a decent, great location lot. She's barely able to keep it up. In fact, she's in tax default. After her expenses and everything else, she was netting just under $8,000 a month. and she had an autistic son that she was helping to support with the money. So she was basically taking all the cash flow and using that to live off of. They approached us, decided to sell. They sold the property, and we were able to actually, we're talking to her. She wanted to look for a good, strong single tenant net lease that could improve her cash flow. So we actually found a large franchise corporate franchisee guaranteed Sonic that was in the 97th percentile of all Sonics and at a really good cap rate to the point where I was able to literally double her income. Her net operating income went from just under 8,000 to 16,300 a month. And she said that was life changing for her. And those are the stories I love the most.
Yeah.
And because I mean, that is what I love about the industry is trying to find what the pain points of the clients are and being able to help solve that by using real estate and whether it's tax deferment even cost segregation
Yeah.
stuff or or however to go about it to make their life easier and better and address what their concerns are. So
Wow.
yeah, those are the best stories though, and those I have quite a few of, and I love those though. It's my clients become it's cliche, I guess, but they're almost like family. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of my clients. I go out, we have dinners, and with no expectations. I think one of my best clients gave me one of my best compliments I've ever had was, "You are the worst salesperson I've ever." He called me one day and just point blank said, "You George, I got to tell you, you're the worst salesperson I've ever met." I said, "Okay, Kirk, I'll bite." Now, this is a gentleman who I had sold 4 office buildings to.
Right.
All right. And so I said, "I'll bite. What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Well, I keep bringing properties to you and you keep talking me out of buying them." And I said, "Well, yes. And that's why you're probably always going to keep coming to me as a client."
Right.
It was absolutely, but you're still the worst salesperson. I said, "No, the way I look at it, if I had sold you those and you didn't do well, which you wouldn't have,
Right.
I wouldn't have you as a client anymore."
Exactly.
So yeah, so that's probably the best compliment I ever got from a client.
Wow. Pretty awesome stories. By the way.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible stuff. Amazing. Well, George, I'd love to transition to what we like to call now the final four. And these are four questions that I ask all my guests. And first question for you is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
Okay, so I can't count the chores of my childhood of house chores. So honestly, I've been pretty lucky to have some really decent jobs, but probably a cook at Pizza Hut. You know what? I had a telemarketing job as well. Horrible, horrible. Actually, my very first job out of college, I was selling commodities, and I loved the idea of selling the commodities and doing it. But we had, frankly, the company I was with was very cutthroat, and it was a model that they kept pushing us to try and sell stuff that I didn't see or could make sense of why, but it had great margins and commissions on our end.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, for me, it just felt wrong selling something that I didn't believe in. So I left after about 3 months.
Yeah. You have to really believe in it. I totally agree. Having
Yeah.
been a salesperson as well, you have to
Mhm.
believe in what you're selling or else it just doesn't go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to have the passion for it and you have to believe in it. And, otherwise, you're not going to get the trust from the people working with you.
Exactly. People are going to sense the insincerity, I think, in
Mhm.
many cases.
Yeah.
Second question, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
This is probably from a long time ago, and I think I continually try and grow and do things as I get moving forward. And there is the biggest, and I actually buy this book now. It's an old book, and I buy it for all of my agents when they first start. I bought it for my kids. I bought it for classrooms, for teachers and it's How to Lie with Statistics. So it was a book that was written in the 60s, I want to say 60s, 70s. It was actually required reading at business school at USC when I went to in my problem stats class. But what I loved about it was not so much, and the paradigm shift that it gave me was it wasn't so much about how to lie with statistics, but rather how to open your eyes and see how people are lying, how to question the whole truth versus the partial truth. For example, one of the things that they're talking about is when someone says the average. Oh, the average is $100,000. Well, is it the mean, median, or mode? And depending on whichever one fits the best, I'm lying perhaps or leading you down a path that may not be fully truthful by choosing the best average to paint the picture that I want you to see. And that really caused me to really sit back and, of all things, start looking at and questioning everything that I read and using a lot more of the common sense aspect. Like, and that's one of my initial tests. Whenever I read something that's crazy in the news, which I think everyone almost on a daily basis can see these days, it's, well, what's logic? Human nature doesn't change. Does it make sense logically? And if it doesn't, it's probably not correct or true, but you should at least fact check it. And that's probably the biggest change. And I still believe in the book. I
Yeah.
literally, like I said, every single agent gets a I buy them a book and give it to them. And it's a quick 2-hour read.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I'll definitely check it out. A little before my time, but I have never heard of that book. But it makes sense. I mean, obviously it's so
Yeah.
true that I definitely recognize the fact that you can change numbers around and show basically whatever you want to show. So I will definitely check that out, add that to my reading list, and hopefully some of our listeners will as well. Third question, George, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn? And this could be anything.
I'm working on languages.
Hmm.
Yeah, working on Japanese right now. I'd love to speak it a lot better than I do. I understand a little bit more so than I speak. I've forgotten quite a bit of it, and Duolingo. I'm working on it right now, and I'll probably take a little bit more formal. But I think language is definitely that, and trying to get better at playing the ukulele.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
Well, very cool. It's fascinating because the two most common responses that I get to this question are either learn a language or play an instrument. So you hit them both on the head right
I hate
there.
both. I mean, I love doing it. I mean, I grew up playing the cello, and I it's kind of hard to carry around with you to break out.
Yeah,
So, is something that I can at least walk around with and play. It's just that I have big hands and fingers, so it's really tough on the frets. It's so tiny on but just practice. Got to keep working.
for sure. Absolutely. And fourth and final question, what does success mean to you?
I get this actually quite a bit, and people have asked it a little bit as well. And there's an old saying from Hawaii or so that kind of a tongue in cheek. There's two ways to become richer: make more money or want less.
Mm,
And ultimately, I don't look at money as being the end all be all, but as more about allowing me the freedom to do the things that I'd like to do. And so, I'm not here to collect money. I don't believe in having, like whoever ends up with the most at the end wins.
right.
It's whoever enjoyed their life the most. So for
Mm,
me, success is being able to go out and being able to enjoy life how you want to enjoy it. And that may be working all day for some people all the time, or maybe taking more time and more vacations, maybe spending time with your family. But true success for me is being able to do what you want to do without worries about, you know, being in financial distress or so.
yeah.
One of the things I've told every single one of my kids, and I love the fact that they followed this one piece of advice. I told them to, no matter what you want to do in life, do what you're passionate about and what you want to really do, and you'll never feel like you're working a day in your life. And our kids have followed that path, and I love that.
Yeah.
And and I'll support them with whatever it is. Unfortunately, none of them wanted to go into real estate,
That's
but
well,
so it's okay.
listen, as long as they're happy, that's the most important thing.
That's exactly it. It's being happy, doing the right thing, just living your life as best as you can, and helping people.
For sure, 100%. Well, George, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation today, getting to know you a little better and hearing about your amazing career over the past several decades. And hopefully we can catch up again soon. But until then, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want?
The easiest way for me is actually if you go to our website, the www.cbicommercial.com has my contact information, also Calendly. If you ever want a consultation call or anything like that, they can easily just book an appointment with me. It'll show all the open spots that we have.
All right, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And everyone, I hope you do check it out and check out CBI. There's a lot they have to offer. And really, again, thank you, George. It's been Been fun.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, until next time, our listeners, thank you guys for listening all the way to the end once again. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.